Right, Marie, you're on.
All right. Thanks again for the invitation, everybody. All right, what I'm going to tie for you tonight is Malard Damsel. Look, it's tied. The thing about a lot of the commercial damsels is they often too heavily dressed. You know, you'll see they overdress it using marabous, and it looks more like a dragon than a damsel. This pattern Alan Marburg showed me quite a few years ago, and it's called a Malard Damsel because besides the hook and the ribbing and the eye, the entire fly is tied with dyed olive mallard. You can also do it with the brown dyed mallard or the natural. You get certain thing with some damsels called instars or most aquatic nymphs when it's shedding its skin, and they're a very light creamy color. I've had quite a lot of success with that as well. So you can use all three colors. You can use the olive, the dyed brown, or the standard natural barred mallard. It's caught yellows in Sturkfontein and plenty of stillwater trout. That's primarily what I use it for. Now, this one that you see in the vise has got a burnt mono eye. I wasn't going to burn 20 mono eyes for you guys, so I have bought the mono, and there's a candle here and so on, and some little forceps. If you want to burn some mono eyes, by all means go for it. I like the mono eyes. They're laborious, they take time to make. Just briefly, I don't think you'll see it in the camera, but just a few pointers if you want to make your own mono eyes is, first of all, start with a very thick mono. Don't get 6 or 7 pound line to make even a damsel eye. This is 30 pound that I use for most damsels up to size 10. If you want to do the dragons, get yourself 80 pound line. Use very thick line so that you've got a much shorter piece to work with. Otherwise you end up burning and burning and burning to get the right size eye. Now, the trick is don't do it over your lap, because if you drop hot burning mono, you'll know all about it. I've done that a few times. What you want to do is just burn just the start of the eye. Now you can use a pair of forceps. The trick is you want to have something that is very narrow, or it's got a very small sort of length to it or diameter. This is the better tool, so that I can get quite close, because there's nothing worse than a damsel or dragon that's got these eyes sticking out like this. It looks like a shrimp rather than a nymph. Okay. Once you've kind of done that, that's not good enough, because those will just crack off. What you have to do is use the blue part of the flame without any wind around, and then just keep burning it so that it smokes. And you just keep doing that. You'll see it smoke like that. Then move it away, let that dry, and do the other side. And you continue doing that until it burns dark brown to almost black. If you don't, they'll just crack off. Okay. So there's no point in just burning it like that and marking it with a black marking pen. It's not going to last. The eyes you'll come back with your beautiful damsel or dragon without the eye. Okay. All right. So for those of you who want to burn your mono eyes, by all means, here it is. That'll probably take you more time than it takes to tie the fly, but never mind. All right. The hook I'm using is 14682. It's a grip hook. You can use the TMC 200R or any equivalent curved hook. You can use a straight shank, usually a 2x long or maybe a 3x. You don't want to go much longer than that. Now, instead of me using the burnt mono eye, because you can turn this pattern into a red eye damsel type fly, except tied the Malard damsel sort of version. Now, with any dragon or damsel, the first thing you want to put in is the eye. Just helps you with proportions. So with any nymph eye tie that's going to have some sort of eye, just tie in your eye first. Now, the next mistake people make is they tie their eye too far back. In other words, they'll set the eye up right over here. Then your dragon or damsel again looks really strange. If you look at a dragon or a damselfly nymph, the eyes are right up front, right up on front. You have to leave a little bit of space. We do a little bit of dubbing and a little bit of tying in front of these eyes. So what you want to do is get it reasonably close and just use figure of 8. That's about right. So we've got about an eye, a hook eye's length away from the eyes. That's about the most you want to do. The beauty of the tough chenille is it ties in very quickly, very easily compared to the mono. With the mono eye, you have to really tie it in. Then you must go under your eyes to pull all those thread wraps nice and tight, and then you're going to go through the eyes again. But with this tough chenille or suede chenille, it's pretty quick process in the eyes end. Don't tie in a short, tiny little piece. Leave it longer rather. I also sell more chenille that way, which is always good. But you want to cut that to length after you've tied it in. All right, I'm going to advance my thread all the way down. Now you've got a curved hook here for a reason. We want to utilize that bend. Don't buy or tie on a curved hook like this and stop sort of over here, because then you're defeating the object. You want to actually get down the bend a bit. So go down that bend. Look, I don't think the fish mind too much, but it does look nicer in the fly box, which is probably the most important thing.
Just to make sure it swims up to
that. Yeah. Okay, the tail part of this, I use the fluff or the plume part of the olive mallard. Like a marabou, it's a little different to marabou. The fibers don't sort of bind together like marabou does, and it's got nice air trapping sort of characteristics in it. Don't worry too much about length, because I'm going to pinch that to length. And just trim the butts. Okay, and just pinch that on top. Just 1 or 2 wraps, because the first thing you want to make sure in this area here with any damsel nymph or any nymph pattern, especially in the smaller nymphs. I had a client asking me, how do we create small tapered bodies? This area here where I've got to tie in my tail and my ribbing and the body material, you want to keep the wraps to a minimum. Then just put your wire in place.
Show some people where you just did that.
It's just something that shortcuts doing a pinch loop, or is just to take whatever you're doing, any ribbing material, any body material, whatever, and you can just slip it in and underneath the thread like that. It just saves you trying to do that pinch loop. And as I was saying, just keep these wraps to an absolute minimum. Right. Okay. This is going to be the fun part now. In this packet of mallard, what you must do is you'll go and look for the biggest feathers you can find. What I mean is the feathers that have the longest fiber, and these feathers don't really have much other use other than either wrapping bodies or maybe tails and legs. So there's not going to be, we probably won't have enough, but if you share, you'll find enough feathers for all of us. Okay, so go and look for the longest possible fibers you can find, and we're just going to make it still. So if you look at a short feather like this, something like that, you're not going to get the length you need to wrap the body. There's a way around it, and you can do it in 2 stages, but we want to try and avoid that. All right, I've cut this fiber, and don't be shy. Take quite a nice chunk. That'll help you also get from one end of the tail area all the way to the, and just cut these little points. I'm tying it in by its tips. Just wet that slightly, and literally just catch that, because you want as much length as possible, even at the risk of losing a fiber or 2. I'll just trap that on the tips. Okay, like you do with marabou, just wet that down. You want to try and keep this body as even as possible. That's why I kept all the waist there. Run that all the way down. Now, again, with dragons and damsels, 3/4 of the body of any dragon, or the entire length of any dragon or damsel, is made up of its abdomen. So another mistake people make is they'll do the short little abdomen and this huge long thorax and head area. Dragons and damsels are 3/4 of their entire length is made up of the abdomen. Okay, so if you're looking for the right sort of proportions, that's what you want to try and achieve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quite a way forward. And that's what I mean there. So I'm looking at this head area. I'm saying to myself, okay, I want 3/4 abdomen and maybe 1/4 thorax, legs, head, the rest. Okay. What we're going to do with this is we're going to wrap this. Now, because of length, try and flatten it so that you cover quite a bit of the shank as you go. If you've got one of those little, try and hold a multi-stranded fiber with hackle pliers can be tricky at best. So if you've got those little easy hook, I don't know if any of you guys have got those in your kit, it's that little push with a little hook.
Electronic hook.
Yeah, it's an electronic hook. They use it in building PC boards. That works great for this sort of thing. Otherwise, you just got to kind of battle along with it. What I'm doing is I'm going around, pushing it so that I'm holding it in place. And inevitably it does happen occasionally where it all runs away from you. Right. Okay. Okay, that's the abdomen part of the fly. Right. And look, what this mallard does, it gives you an incredibly, much slimmer than wrapping marabou. Even the finest strung marabou still often creates a lot of fluff, So if you look, sure, there. That's in this light you won't see it, but that slight mottling in that as well, you can actually see it with the naked eye. And some of you may not know, but trout don't have very good eyesight at distance. But when they get close to something, they actually can define detail very, very, very well. In fact, better than us. They can see close up much better. Right, we can pinch this tail now if we like. We're probably looking for sort of, I'd say, half the length of the abdomen. Now, some people talk about reversing the ribbing on pheasant tail fibers, or I don't bother with that. I really don't. I'm hoping the trout are going to tear this fly apart before anything else happens. So just a nice even rib. Don't overdo the ribbing. This just gives it the segmentation and a little bit of sparkle and durability.
So you don't counter ribbing?
Nah, that's what I'm saying. I don't bother with that counter ribbing story. I don't like that. I like everything I tie, I like my thread to be continually pulling it tight. So when you counter rib and you go to tie that off, the thread goes against the ribbing. It just makes a mess there. I don't like it, no. And as you can see, this ribbing's not cutting into the fibers and disappearing. Right, doing what I shouldn't do, cutting the wire with your scissors. Right, okay, we're almost done.
Like when you can just go swap them up for a pair.
Fancy that. Right, the next thing we're going to put in is this is going to form the wing case, the part of the head and the legs all in one sort of go. So you want to select.
No, so just show us that again. Just drop down next to the closest to the hook.
Sure, that there.
That piece.
Okay, that's going to be the wing case. It's going to go over the head and it's going to finish off and create the legs. I think probably the width of this, I guess, it depends on the size of the hook. Just use your discretion. It's such a fragile, delicate material, it doesn't really matter if you overdo it. It just means you're going to end up with more legs. What you want to try and do, though, is try and get this length. In other words, from the tie-in point here, we want the length of this piece to be about 3 to 4 times the length of that. Because I'm going to tie it in, fold it over, tie it in again, and then fold it back. Sounds very complicated, but it's not. So what I'm looking for is 1, sort of 2, 3 to 4 times the length of that area, and then just bopper that in and just pull it over and have a look. Just sort of see, okay, I'm going to tie that off there. A damsel's legs are quite long and spidery, so if you go a little bit too long, don't worry about it, but you don't want, these massively long legs. Okay, it should do it. Okay, then we use this fluff, the same feather, we're going to dub with it. I'm sure some of you have dubbed with marabou before. Just take it out. You don't need to be particularly neat about it. It dubs quite easily. Just keep the dubbing slim. The damselfly is a very slim, slender aquatic nymph. It's not a chunky nymph like its cousin, the dragon. Right, so we'll just run that forward. This is going to be the thorax area now, so we're going to go not quite up against the eyes. I want to leave a bit of space there. If you've got too much dubbing, just pull it away. pull that over to make the little wing case. Tie that down, then carry on in front of the eyes and tie down. So I'll turn this around for you to have a look now. Alright, so I've created that very small little wing case area, and now these are going to be folded back over just now as the legs. Right, now I can dub my little head, and all we do is we go around in front of the eyes, through. Nothing, if you feel you haven't got enough dubbing, just back off a little bit. You don't want any thread showing. Not that you're going to see it with this fly. And then you finish off behind the head. And then just pull that straight over. Tie down. Now what you want to do here is you want to just divide these legs roughly. So I've pulled the legs almost equal. And just tie that down. And that's the tying done. And just whip finish that off. Alright, there's one or two things left to do, and it's pretty much finished. So no, the head is behind, the tying off position is behind the eyes.
Quick question.
Yeah.
You know the whole red-eyed damsel is red-eyed. Is this just a trigger, or is there a reason why?
The whole thing that the red-eyed damsel, how that all happened was they ran out of black tough chenille. Tom Sutcliffe and Ed, Hugh Huntley, they ran out of black tough chenille because he was using black tough chenille as eyes. Makes great eyes on nymphs. So you decided to use red. Yeah, I think it's a trigger. I really do. It's an effective fly. This particular damsel in a red-eye version I haven't fished. I've always fished it as the mono eyes, but I have no doubt it's going to work. And why not mix things up? So you could use black tough chenille. By the way, I hate these straight legs, so I just kind of kink them. And if you want them to stay like that, just take a hot needle and hit them gently like that, and they do what these legs have kind of done. They kind of stay bent in all different places, and that I don't like them straight. Okay, the next thing I'll do is just trim those. Shit, let me put my eyes back on. You know, you're getting old and you look at people like, remind me of a teacher. I have a nightmare. Right, just cut those nice and short. You don't want these big red eyes sticking out. It's kind of a one cut wonder. If you mess it up, well, start again. And that's it. I think a little red-eyed one looks pretty cool. It'll probably work nicely. But I think the whole trick to this damsel, and I think what you're trying to achieve, is just something very, very delicate, very sparse. It's an easy fly to tie, one material, and that's it. I don't know if you guys have any other questions, or you want to give it a crack. For those of you who want to try the burnt mono, you better start now. Yeah. Oh yeah, I got sample shipment from Hairline on some new materials for this year, and the order arrives at the end of the month. So that's just the samples of what's coming. By all means, have a look. If you have any questions, it's all synthetics because they have some new colors in the naturals. Not many natural new materials. Obviously, there's not too many natural species falling out of the sky every now and again. But there's a lot of new synthetics going on here. Yeah, maybe we can find a use for some penguins or leopard seals. Yeah, the trick will be getting the materials.
When they're molting, they drop feathers like anything. You can't believe. The feathers are lying there this time of the year, so they just drop them. And but the point is, a dropped feather is a second-hand feather. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's not very useful.
Rather shit.
Whose design is this?
Alan Myberg. Yeah, he lives in Dubai now, Alan. He does those bronzes like Chris Bladen and that. So yeah, he came and showed me it, and I really liked. What I liked about it was the simplicity and how he uses one material to tie the whole fly. You know, and it looks great in the water. You could throw rubber legs in if you like, but this is a natural, really effective pattern now.
Well, you say you bend the legs with a needle.
Yeah, you just take a needle and just heat it gently, and then just touch the legs and pull them in that, and they kind of all bend. I don't like things straight like this. It's just my own, you know. So I like to kink them, because when you crimp and kink them with your hands, they don't stay like that, you know. But if you do it with a hot needle, yeah, they stay bent like that, yeah.
Mary tells these things, how fast can you take them down?
What, this fly?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could tie a size, not that you would want to in a damsel, but you could tie this down to an 18 on one of these
So I was
hooks.
talking about the tail.
I beg your pardon?
The tails on these things. Can you tie them sparser than what you got there? Or?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you want to pinch some of this out. You can make it sparse if you like. The thing is, you want to, in any nymph, there's triggers. And your damsel are those three real gill-like, paddle-like tails that they have, you know. So I don't go too sparse on my tail. I like a bit of a chunky, but where I like the sparseness is in the body. Sorry, Bruce. Yeah, you can throw a little tiny, clear, transparent sequence on your leader on the front of this, and then you'll check your fly also with a great action. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. I've seen Gary Borger do the old wiggle the rod tip, but I don't know how that works with a 20-foot cast even, never mind a 25-meter cast, but anyway. You remember watching that in his meeting? You just wiggle your rod tip and the damsel will wiggle. I'm like, no disrespect intended. Hey, dude. Along a fly line, 25 yards. No. Gives you something to do when fishing slow.
Even the best doesn't always see these Alzheimer's is helping.
Yeah. You can put little diving lips in damsels. There's all sorts of things you can do. But really, most of my fishing with damsels is very slow, and I get most of my fish while it's just actually sitting there. Just static. You give it a tweak, nothing happens, and while that's when they. Yeah, same with dragons. Great. Thank you very much. Right, here's some nice long feathers.
I want this one.
There's another one. There you go. There's another one, don't you? If you want to burn, guys, you can use the lighter.
Everybody's trying red eye today.
I think, yeah, you know what? You know how to do burnt mono eye.
It's just I can't see from that side.
It's always a bit.
I need to get my camera.